talking today about the socialistic kingdom of the Antichrist and the current efforts to establish that kingdom, which is very socialistic. Now, I say that the Sustainable Development Goals, which is one of the main efforts to implement socialism around the world, and it's by the United Nations, and I say it's socialistic again because the plan includes the socialistic principle of wealth redistribution, one of the major planks of socialism. And it states that the reduction of inequality will only be possible if wealth is shared and income inequality is addressed. So they say right up front in their plan, this is all about wealth redistribution, socialism. And I also refer to this plan as global governance of every aspect of every person on the planet, since the plan actually states we commit to making fundamental changes in the way that our societies produce and consume goods and services. Governments, international organizations, the business sector, and other non-state actors and individuals must contribute to changing unsustainable consumption and production patterns. And I mean, they want to get very, very detailed into your life and into my life, how we run things, but how they will allow us to do that, in other words. So the ruse is that humans are using the earth's resources at such a rate that nothing will be left for future generations. And therefore, the United Nations, the world government, must establish a master plan to govern the earth's citizens. It must, in true socialistic form, redistribute the wealth of the world so that everyone is considered equal. They want to control the production and consumption of every person. They strive to achieve universal health care. You've heard about that lately. They want to control the climate. They want to manage our cities and our infrastructure, govern the oceans, and govern land usage along with all ecosystems. So this is the Sustainable Development Goals. This is world government, socialistic world government, endeavoring to implement socialism in every country in the world. Remember, it was unanimously adopted by 193 member nations of the United Nations. Now, when we talk about socialism at the United Nations, from its inception, the United Nations designed to be a socialistic one world governing body. The original UN Charter, written by Alger Hiss, who was later revealed to be a communist spy. To this day, not one word of the original charter has changed. And again, one of the main planks of socialism, wealth redistribution. In the United Nations Global Governing Plan, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda, Sustainable Development, under the subtitle New Agenda, again, they say this will only be possible if wealth is shared and income inequality is addressed. That's wealth redistribution. Again, the 2030 Agenda, nothing more than the United Nations socialistic plan to govern the world. So, socialism at the United Nations. Antonio Guterres, the current Secretary General of the United Nations, he was president of the Socialist International from 1999 to 2005. And prior to that, he had been the Socialist International Vice President between 92 and 99. I'm talking about the Socialist International, folks. He's the current Secretary General of the United Nations. That's not by accident. Do you think they would put somebody like President Trump over that? No way, because he's diametrically opposed to socialism. They're going to put a dyed-in-the-wool socialist who is also a globalist, and that's what they've got in there. And so Antonio Guterres was also the chair of the Socialist International Committee on Economy Policy and Development and the Environment. So the Socialist International's own website states that because, why would they state this? Because they're socialistic. They know the United Nations is socialistic. So they actually say, and I'm quoting, strengthening the United Nations is an important step in the creation of this new democratic world society. Now, if the United Nations was not socialistic, would the Socialist International be on board with them? No way. They go on to say where there is a consensus among the major nations, significant peacemaking and peacekeeping initiatives are possible. The United Nations specialized agencies like the World Health Organization and UN organs like the United Nations Development Program and the United Nations Children Emergency Fund have demonstrated that the governments and citizens of various nations can work effectively together in pursuit of common international goals. So, socialism is the political ideology of the international community. They're not out there working for our good, even though most liberal news sources would try to make it seem like that. Socialism's all about control, period. It's not about giving away free stuff. They give you free stuff to entice you to say, okay, I'm going to give you this free little trinket, but yet there's a million strings attached to that. We did this for you. Now you owe us this and that and this freedom, and you always pay for these things by your freedoms. Talk about extortion at the highest level. So President Trump, when he was in office, he knew exactly what was going on. On September 19th of 2017, during his first speech at the United Nations, as President of the United States, he said the problem in Venezuela is not that, now again, United Nations, totally socialistic. But he's standing there at his speech and he says, the problem in Venezuela is not that socialism has been poorly implemented, but that socialism has been faithfully implemented at all. From the Soviet Union to Cuba to Venezuela, wherever the true socialism or communism has been adopted, it has delivered anguish and devastation and failure. And those who preach the tenets of these discredited ideologies only contribute to the continued suffering of the people who live under these cruel systems. And socialism is also the reason why President Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Agreement. On June 1, 2017, President Trump was speaking on the Paris Climate Accord in the Rose Garden, and he said the agreement is a massive redistribution of the United States wealth to other countries. Beyond the severe energy restrictions inflicted by the Paris Accord, it includes yet another scheme to redistribute wealth out of the United States through the so-called Green Climate Fund, which calls for developed countries to send $100 billion to developing countries, all on top of America's already existing and massive foreign aid payments. So, you remember the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? Socialistic, right? Well, think about the World Economic Forum and their Great Reset. All of this, folks, ties in together. The World Economic Forum promotes the Sustainable Development Goals in 110%. They're all in because they're globalist. They believe in a world government and they believe in socialism. When you think about the World Economic Forum, this Great Reset, globalist groups have taken the 2030 agenda and developed forums and initiatives to propel these ideas forward. One of them being the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is, like I say, fully engaged in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. What they're doing, all of this, if you just erased it and gave it all a title, it would be implementing socialism globally. The World Economic Forum states, in the closing session of the World Economic Forum's fourth Sustainable Development Impact Summit, the leaders called for governments, businesses, and civil societies to create new kinds of cooperation to tackle COVID-19 and the climate crisis. To achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, diplomats urge leaders to seize the opportunity for a Great Reset. They're tying the Great Reset into the Sustainable Development Goals. And the idea that was championed by Klaus Schwab, he was the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. So you say Great Reset. Well, the World Economic Forum says that the world must act jointly and swiftly to revamp all aspects of our societies and our economies. This is very important when we talk about socialism and wealth redistribution. from education and social contracts and working conditions, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil, gas, and tech must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism. What's that got to do with COVID-19? Well, I guess any crisis is as good as another, right? So this group of political, business, and cultural leaders of society feel that the COVID-19 outbreak and resulting political, economic, and social crisis is changing the traditional context for decision-making. The inconsistencies, inadequacies, and contradictions of multiple systems, from health and financial to energy and education, are more exposed than ever amidst a global context of a concern for our lives. Yeah, right. And our livelihoods and the planet. And leadership on small and large scales are managing situations and pressures for short-term and long-term uncertainty, causing them to form what they are calling the Great Reset Initiative. Well, so the Great Reset. Well, Fox Business reports that what is the Great Reset? Well, simply put, it's a growing movement backed by many of the world's most powerful business leaders, government officials, and left-wing activists that aims to push the reset button on the global economy. And it would destroy the current capitalist system and replace it with progressive and a modern socialist system with a special emphasis placed on eco-socialist policies like that are contained in what you've heard as the Green New Deal. It states that every country from the United States and China must participate in this Great Reset. Every industry, oil, gas, and tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism, and of course that was written by Klaus Schwab again of the World Economic Forum in one of their recent articles on the World Economic Forum's website. You've got to search for that stuff, but it's all there. Policy ideas offered by the Great Reset advocates and include government-provided basic income programs, universal health care, massive tax increases, and of course, the Green New Deal. So, that's the Great Reset. So, here's another question for us here in the United States. I know this is going to go around the world, but for us here in the United States, is President Joe Biden in on it? Well, while he was campaigning for president, Joe Biden said, well, hey, we need to end the era of shareholder capitalism, a major part of the Great Reset proposal that would alter how companies are evaluated, elevating social justice causes and climate change concerns over property rights. Now, what this is all leading to, folks, is socialism, but they're not saying the word socialism. So instead of worrying about profits, opponents of shareholder capitalism argue companies should be forced to focus on stakeholders, which is just another way of saying the collective. So this is all leading us down the road towards socialism, the Great Reset, moving off of shareholder capitalism onto stakeholder capitalism. It's something that we need to be watching because it's all the ongoing fulfillment of this end-time socialistic world government.
As soon as you say end time, they say, whoa, the end of the world. When's it going to be? And you can see this mask of fear. I'm not telling you the end time is coming. I'm telling you, you live in it right now. Daniel chapter number 7, verse number 4. The first beast was like a lion. We have the eagle used continually to depict the United States of America. You see it on governmental documents. We are the generation for which these that you will not miss one segment of understanding end time, because I've had many people tell me it's changed their life forever. Many of the major prophecies of the Bible are given to us 2, 3, some of them as high as 4 or 5 times. There is not any chance it's not going to happen, because it's in your Bible, it's prophesied, and the prophecies always come back.
You know, Klaus Schwab, the leader of the World Economic Forum, and other great reset leaders, they've been making arguments against shareholder capitalism, which is what we enjoy here in the United States. They've been making arguments against that for literally decades, going all the way back to the 70s. But only recently, spurred by concerns about climate change and wealth inequality, has it gained any traction. Wealth inequality. Think socialism when you hear that. The connection between Joe Biden and the radical Great Reset is best seen by examining Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan. According to Biden's campaign website, his Build Back Better proposal would launch a national effort aimed at creating the jobs we need to build a modern, sustainable infrastructure now and deliver an equitable, clean energy future. So the focus of Biden's proposal is the destruction of the modern energy industry. Look at what he's trying to do with oil and gas. I mean, just think about that for a second. He actually said in one of his debates with President Trump, we need to move off of the oil and gas industry. He said that to United States citizens. That's unthinkable. But Joe Biden wants to replace with renewable energy sources like wind and solar. So the Build Back Better plan comes straight from the Great Reset's playbook. These things are all working towards the same goal, everybody. You think they've ever had a conversation between each other again for these things? Absolutely they have. Great Reset supporters, especially the World Economic Forum, have been calling for some variation of a Build Back Better plan for years, often using those exact words in World Economic Forum materials. In fact, as recently as July 13th of last year, the World Economic Forum promoted Build Back Better through green infrastructure programs as part of the Great Reset in an article that was titled, "To Build Back Better," listen to this title, "To Build Back Better, we must reinvent capitalism. Here's how." You don't even need to wonder what they're trying to do. They're trying to move us off of shareholder capitalism onto stakeholder capitalism. And so Great Reset supporters have tried to promote their proposal as a new kind of capitalism, but the truth is, it's a fundamentally socialistic system, but it's going to put the collective in control of most economic activity and impose a number of social justice reforms meant to rebalance economies, the inequality, right? And to redistribute the wealth around the world. Here's the deal, everybody. Either you control your money and your business, or somebody else does. When it's all said and done, either you control it and you have freedom, or somebody else controls it and your freedom's out the window. That's what we're looking at here. And so there are three main components of this Great Reset: steering towards fairness, whether in government or businesses, equality and sustainability, and addressing health and social changes in every sector. Now, these initiatives, they are very similar to those of the 2030 Agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, right? But some would say, oh, they have nothing to do with each other. Well, think again. They're all leading us down the same road. Now, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, one other thing I have to mention while we're on this topic. There's another agency attempting to implement the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda, and that is, again, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. And having partnered with the Vatican in December of 2020, the joint mission is to harness the private sector to create a more inclusive, sustainable, and trusted economic system. The thing is, it's either capitalism or it's not, okay? And this movement is led by leaders in world business. I mean, at the pinnacle, as well as the public sector, working to build a more inclusive, sustainable, trusted economic system that addresses the needs of our people and the planet. Who's over it? Well, Lynn Forrester de Rothschild. You ever heard the Rothschild name, the banking conglomerate overseas in Europe? Well, she's the founder of the council and managing partner of the Inclusive Capital Partners. She believes capitalism has created enormous global prosperity, but it has also left too many people behind, led to degradation of our planet, and is not widely trusted in society. Now, that lady and her husband, it is said, are worth about $20 billion. And she's saying that what has got them that money has left everybody most people in society behind. I mean, if you can come up with an explanation for that one, let me know. The Council for Inclusive Capitalism website states this. This is very important to my entire topic today. And I'm quoting from their website. Council members make actionable commitments aligned with the World Economic Forum. They're all working towards the same thing. And the World Economic Forum's International Business Council's pillars for sustainable value creation, for people, planet, principles, and governance, and prosperity, here it is, and that advance the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations, the World Economic Forum, Joe Biden's Build Back Better, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, they're all working to implement the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which is what? The socialistic blueprint to govern every single person on the planet. They're all working for the same team, folks. And the Bible says, in the end time, there will be a socialistic one world governing body that the Antichrist will usurp authority over and lead for 3.5 years. Folks, that world government is being established as we speak, and we are just prior to the revealing of the Antichrist. We're living in the end time. Pope Francis, who is on board with the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, he actually stated, and I'm quoting, an inclusive capitalism that leaves no one behind, that discards none of our brothers or sisters, is a noble aspiration worthy of our best efforts. And in his speech at the World Government Summit back in 2017, Pope Francis supported sustainable development, a direct reference to the Agenda 2030 ideology. He was influential in getting the Sustainable Development Goals passed. And the summit's goals were to promote the technocratic globalism and plot the future of what they often called their New World Order. That's where all this is headed, a socialistic one world governing body. This New World Order seems to welcome all types of people, right? Whether they're globalist, Islamist, big business, communist, and although you're going to be hard-pressed to see a patriotic American Christian conservative capitalist in that mix, right? I mean, President Trump didn't fit into that mix very good, did he? And so, bringing about change through the implementation of the 2030 Agenda takes strengthened global solidarity, focused in particular on the needs of the poorest and the most valuable, with the participation of all countries and all stakeholders and all people. So, as we get closer, think about this, as we get closer to 2030, and there'll be so many prophecies that happen between now and then, I'm sure, but it's going to be interesting to see how these, which right now we're fixing to enter into only 8 years away. And it's going to be interesting to see how these measures play out. I mean, it's a grand plan that would take compromise and consideration of other viewpoints, but in the words of the 2030 agenda, there can be no sustainable development without peace, no peace without sustainable development, and without the redistribution of wealth. It all goes back to socialism. So, folks, an end-time world government is prophesied to be in power at the time of the second coming of Jesus Christ, and the prophecies always come to pass. It will be a socialistic one-world governing body. Remember the red, seven-headed, ten-horned beast in Revelation 17:3. The Sustainable Development Goals, the Great Reset, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism, and the endorsement with the endorsement of Pope Francis even, and all the Build Back Better you hear talk about, it's the ongoing fulfillment of this 2,000-year-old prophecy. So in the end, socialism. And I've heard some people say, well, socialism has nothing to do with communism. Back in 2005, the National Committee of the Communist Party USA, yes, there is a Communist Party USA, they approved their final text of their party program. And I want to give you a few excerpts from that text which clearly reveal their intentions. They say, and I'm quoting, "The struggles for the immediate demands and reforms needed by the working people today are essential steps towards our ultimate goal of the revolutionary transformation of society and the economy towards socialism and then communism." Socialism's the first step. They also say, and I'm quoting from their party platform, "Communists advocate socialism as the first phase of a new stage of society, but we don't think that social and economic development will end at socialism. We see socialist society eventually leading to a higher phase communism where the capitalist class and all classes will have disappeared." Now, this is what they're planning. The party's role will include agitation and propaganda for a fully developed socialist society on the way to communism. Do you remember that Vladimir Lenin said that in striving for socialism, we are convinced it will develop into communism? Well, Mr. Lenin, you were absolutely correct. Many people believe that, and that's what they're pushing for today. So it is many times before, and according to the Bible, it's going to happen again. The prophecies have come to pass, one right after another. Prophecy foretells the last human government on earth will be a socialistic, communistic empire. And the Bible prophesies in the end time that world government will be established and ruled by the Antichrist. And as such, no Christian should want to be a part of it. Both Daniel and John tell us that when the Lord returns, He will destroy this world government and establish His kingdom on the earth. And so, in looking at all of this and tying it all in together, we are living in the end time. I'm not sitting here at the desk guessing. Let me see, I wonder if we're in the end time or not. Folks, this is a fulfillment of a 2,000-year-old prophecy. You say, well, what should I be doing? Number one, the number one thing on your list, make sure you're prepared for the second coming of Jesus Christ. Be born again. You say, what do you mean born again? Make sure you're ready to go. Study the prophecies of the Bible, understand them, instruct others, because that's our main goal, is to get people prepared for the soon coming of Jesus Christ. And it also helps you to navigate the troubled waters that are just ahead. God bless.